Hey everybody, welcome to the Voices of Orion project. I got my partner here, Dean Seven Alon from Australia, and I'm coming from FEMA Zone 3 in the heart of the resistance, right outside of Death City, Washington, D.C. So hey Dean, what's going on? Let's talk and fill everybody in on where we've been and why we haven't been doing podcasts and what's coming next. So
Yeah. Hey
enlighten
guys.
us.
Yeah. I hope everyone's well, but yeah, it's been pretty intense, and I think we got a lot to talk about regarding the targeting and the mass um scale weaponry that's being used on everyone at the moment. It's fairly complex, and I think a lot of people are getting confused and distressed and looking for support and advice, and they don't know what's happening. Some people legitimately don't know what's happening that within our community and the truth community as a whole, and it's it's concerning. Um, and so I think the first point to cover would be a lot of people are talking about the white static haze that they get over their eyes, and this static haze is also inducing a state of dissociation and confusion in the individual. Um, so they might not even be aware that it's happening to them. They might think it's something outside of their eyes, but it's not. It's nanotechnology, and it's broadcasting. Basically, it's the staticky effect appears to be a attempt at influencing people's thoughts or actions. Um,
Seems like it would be dividing you from control of yourself. It's like splitting your
you
focus.
could, yeah, you do things
Yeah.
to be more specific. It actually affects you if you are meditating or sleeping. You'll wake up and you'll do something like it'll like it's happened to me before I inhibited it enough. Like I woke up and I just would say something like a command, like a robot, and then it would freak out my partner, you know. And at some points, it got so bad that I had to sleep separate for a while on the couch, just so I wasn't um, doing anything to distress her, you know. Yeah, it happens in the effects of this occurs in other ways too. Sometimes you might feel conscious, but you'll feel very angry and confused, or paranoid, or yeah, and it yeah, they can zap you in bursts, and it seems to all of a sudden you'll feel something come over you, like, and then it will go away. Um, but if you continue to provoke this feeling, it'll stay longer. That's the interesting thing. Um, but I've tested this with my partner and I, where multiple times where this attack comes in because we've both got the thing in our arm, you know. Um,
Yeah, that's the was it self-assembling and mobile implant.
Yeah, I can't believe these things are actually they're actually declaring them to be real, you know? Like that they literally, because this was just a theory in my mind, like for a while. Like it's like, okay, we got hit by a drone. I was piecing it together, and it's accumulated nanites into I don't know, maybe a implant type configuration to give it like a factory base. I think that's how it works.
Well, we're
Um,
seeing there's reports of that with a particular medical procedure that is very coveted to the big tech community. It's like a god of or a point of worship. It's a best way to put it, a pharmaceutical god to these people. So we can't talk about it, but there's been evidence that I've seen, um, where they hit that particular medication with a frequency, and they're looking at it, I guess, through a microscope, and they're seeing these little tiny nanomachines assemble. And I don't think that this is something they've kind of, well, they are talking about nanites and nanotechnology a bit in the, from the medical industry. And our friends at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, is also been talking about this in various press releases. So,
Mm.
yeah, they're selling to us as the bright future for them, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to make it clear so there's no confusion. I know I'm talking to everybody that's listening. I know I'm talking about something in here that I won't emphasize too much on because I get zapped if I do. And but um this is a general thing. Like you don't have to have what's in my arm to be um affected by this white static remote control nanite bioweapon thing. Uh, I didn't have the needle, whatever you want to call it. That's the down low terminology that we have to use so you don't get censored. But um,
I would call it the Kung Flu elixir.
yeah,
I mean, we're going to do our best here because, and I've been completely shut down on X, by the way. So that happened before Elon bought it, and who the hell knows how you get back on. It's all over that particular Kung Flu elixir. Now I'm
yeah,
going to talk about it. I can look at posts, I can't follow, and I nobody can. I can post away, but nobody sees them at me. So
yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, it's funny that yeah that happened to me too. But I'm just trying to get my train of thought. Sorry, everyone. It's about this thing that has spread amongst everyone. It actually can spread through the skin. Like it's actually, it is actually contagious, I believe, but it's
well, they do have
uh
skin penetrating nanoparticles. In fact, some of the I don't know if they were classified, but I believe it might have been a FOIA request, or Freedom of Information Act request in regard to the Kung Flu. The plan was to they were looking for funding for a specific project, and they were going to put the Kung Flu in a bat cave with a nano, actually a skin penetrating nanoparticle, and they were going to aerosolize it, infect the bats with the updated Kung Flu that was capable of infecting people. And then they were going to let it go in Southeast Asia like that and study the spread of it to the human population and across the planet. And they didn't get funding to do that. So that was, might have been Eco Health Alliance or some conglomeration of that. So we do know that, yeah, they do have they do have skin penetrating nanoparticles. So I hope we haven't said too much already. You know, the
maybe the
first
words are too
podcast
big.
gets us a week
May-
off.
Maybe hopefully the words are too big to censor. That was
Well, what's
if you
interesting
say
is
it fast enough, skin penetrating nanoparticle.
you can talk
Yeah.
about the Kung Flu all you want, but certain channels get actually punished for it. So yeah, you can never the ever changing community guidelines around here are so ever complex that no one could ever follow it accurately because it isn't meant to be that way. They make it up as they go along.
Yeah.
Rules for what is it? Uh, I forget, but we're basically on the the Trump management system where everything you do is wrong from both sides.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this thing, that's why I wanted to talk about it, Nathan, because we have a mutual friend that I won't put out who we're going to talk to, like on here. But
Right.
she she wanted to know about this stuff, so and about this white stuff, the eye thing that's going on, and the strange automatic, like subconscious sort of behavior that she's witnessed. Um, and yeah, so this is what was happening to me too, and it seems to be happening to a lot of people. I went out to the shop, so what Nathan said is a big clue, skin penetrating. And just so people know, a lot of the research that I've been doing, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I've done a lot of like research, like scientific and medical research, and I've actually spoken to some doctors too about it, and and it seems like they have been experimenting with combining nanites with yeast. Now that's a big clue for everybody of what's going on. It's because they say yeast is a fungus, but here's they keep messing with everyone and kind of confusing the whole thing. They say that only fungus can produce yeast, but when you look up fission yeast, it can be produced by I don't know how to pronounce it right now, sorry, but I'm going to butcher this prokaryotes or something like that.
Is that that's a type of it sounds like a cell. Is it a type of a cell or is it a bacteria? What is exactly is it? I
It's
vaguely
it's
it's vaguely familiar, but I can't place the word.
I'm not 100% sure what you define it as, but one category of it is no like an archaea. Archaea actually fits under these category of this prokaryotes. I think that's what they're called. And
It's a single cell
so
organism.
I think, yeah, I gotta check that.
Everybody's
But
everybody's bored senseless now. It's like, all right.
but yeah, essentially, so what I'm saying here is that it appears to be archaea, and they've been hiding the archaea stuff. There's a big, if you don't want to go down a rabbit hole, anyone that's listening, try and research about archaea and pathogens. There is information you can find about it, but it's limited, and you have to do a bit of mixing and matching detective Scooby-Doo work um, to realize what they're hiding. And what they're hiding is that, yeah, archaea can actually produce yeast, and they might be using that to, like archaea, you know, to um, weaponize like nanites, like, well, to help enhance. Oh, well, you don't need archaea to weaponize nanites, but to
Well, the nanites can
hybridize and
essentially
further
weaponize
weaponize.
pretty much, I think, anything that you get or an infection. They can definitely
Yeah,
exacerbate it. You know, if you want
because
to
the
die from a
yeast,
minor infection, it's a great way to do it.
yeah,
Not a great
because
way,
this
but a
this
great way for
this
them to do it.
stuff's yeah, this stuff seems to be in our body, I think, like just sort of in a state, like constantly. And so if they can trick the body into accepting it as something as part of that would be perfect, wouldn't it? Because things like yeast infections, they're meant to be part of your body, but if they get out of control, they're pathogenic. So it's both
Yeah,
recognized as part of
they're
your body, but
they're
it's
called
pathogenic too.
I think they call those advantageous bacteria, but I could be wrong. It's been so long since I took microbiology, but it's like E. coli. It lines your intestines and it protects them. But if you have a perforated colon, then you can get an internal staph infection and die from your own internal gut bacteria. But you
Mm,
need it. But without it, the bad bacteria colonizes because it's really a matter of vacancy. If the good bacteria, which is advantageous, can kill you, but it lines your intestines and it keeps the stuff that'll penetrate the intestinal wall and do damage to you. So you
mm.
need it, but at the same time, it can be a threat. That's why people die of staph, but yet it's inside them. Same thing with E. coli, and there's a lot of E. coli inside your bowels too. And that protects you. But if you eat
Mm.
E. coli, if you eat it on a sprout or a plate of vegetables, you'll be pretty sick.
Yeah, well,
And if it
this is the
gets into your
case.
body,
Yeah, and this is the case with this. And you see, like, archaea is also related to prion disease, which is a to do with
actually, let me correct it real
brain.
quick. Sorry to interrupt. Staph is on your skin. It's E. coli in your bowels, but I don't know if it's in your bowels. So, and you're not supposed to have E. coli on your
Mm,
skin, but so I just wanted to make sure that everybody got that right.
mm. Yeah, that's yeah, and so the thing is this the archaea. Um, That's all related to that. That's why they don't want you to know, because it's related to prion disease. It's related to the whole adrenochrome thing and the ET stuff. Because it seems that some of the ET stuff is archaea like life form, you know? Um, uh, yeah, and they've been hinting at that in the media, as they always do when they try to tell us what's going on and make fun of us and whatever else. And
You mean the
you go and play,
counterintelligence efforts where
yeah.
something gets out and they discredit it in various ways?
Well, well, if you look at the black goo, see, this is where you can piece it all together and where they're laughing at everyone, right? So you piece it together, you've got this game called Rainbow Six Extraction, and it talks about these enemies called the Archaeans because they're Archaea life forms. They look like black goo monsters. They look like it's literally like the stuff that everyone's freaking out about that, oh, the magnetite with the graphene oxide making this black goo nanite substance, and they're using it in conjunction with a hybridized archaea organism. And so this organism, that this seems to be able to change form. And well, Sin actually uh
For
had
those of you who
a
don't know, Sin's a friend of ours. We have a group of just a small number of us that have kind of found one another. So she's one of the people that when what we do is we get targeted in various different ways. So what he's describing, I'm not kidding. And but I would, I'm getting something else that he's not getting. So what we do is when we have mutual problems like this, or even if we don't, we share information. So she's sharing information with us, and we're trying to do different supplements and techniques and things and strategies to circumvent what's happening. So just to fill everybody in.
yeah, thank you, Nate. Yeah, and they she's not remote viewed, sorry, she had a vision of seeing these things come out of an asteroid. So and they actually kind of depict that in this game, this video game, that these archaea life forms, it's like they use these asteroids to sort of like attack, you know, to drop down and damage whatever's around them, and then attack, you know.
Yeah. Now this is in the
Um,
game for all the skeptics.
yeah. So it's very interesting that she got that because she didn't even know anything about that uh subject, that the game that I'm telling you about. I'm just pointing out how all these dots are connecting, and they uh yeah, it's just very interesting how this black nanite stuff can be used. So it can make Terminator like these things seem to be like minions. They're not actually their own kind, do you know? Like they're just minions that have been made to attack.
Yeah, some kind of AI type of system. I haven't actually experienced this, for those who are wondering. So but I do want to touch on one thing real quick, is that our channel's been dead for about 6 months. So I want people to understand what's been going on with us. I can't remember exactly what happened back during our last video, but I have done some podcasts, and you've done a couple, not a whole lot. I've done a couple more than you, independent of the channel. I haven't uploaded them yet, but we took a bit of a break and just kind of did our own thing. And then mid-December, it was the plan was is I had some work to do in the fall and I was going to get done. I didn't get it done. So we were going to start doing podcast again. And about mid-December, that's when things really started to get bad. And we did that interview on Rob's channel just recently with Tony Rodriguez. And he said it as well, that everybody's reporting an enhanced level of psychic attacks, sicknesses, and all sorts of things associated with this phenomenon. So it isn't just you and I and our little group, it's everybody. So that's why we're doing this podcast tonight, and we're starting off. We're going to be kicking off this thing and trying to do one podcast a week, if possible. So if you don't see us, it's probably due to the fact that we're sick, and that's one of the things that happens. And so yeah, so there's that situation, and then around mid-December, before we could really even get started, we all started to get sick, and it was with long COVID symptoms. And what I found is that a substantially disproportionate percentage of people that refer to themselves as targeted individuals and or MILABs, because it's usually one and the same. Um, there's a very high percentage of people who are dealing with long COVID, and we really can't talk much about that here on YouTube. So in the future, what we're going to be doing is just introducing the whole topic and then moving on to possibly Rumble, where we're also shadow banned but not censored for what we say. It's hard to find our videos there. So they're at least letting us speak, but not giving us reach. And BitChute's the same thing. BitChute shadow bans people, by the way, in a very, very low tech way. And there's not a lot of people on that platform. So Rumble's the place to go. That's the new YouTube, but it's going to wind up probably being just like YouTube unless something changes, because it's already on its way. So we got sick, and then I started taking a new supplement. We probably shouldn't even bring that up unless we start doing stuff on Rumble, because then you're giving out medical advice. So and I guess we should start these podcasts with a disclaimer saying this is strictly for entertainment purposes only. But anyway, yeah, we just kept getting sicker and sicker, and then we finally kind of came out on the other side of that, and I wound up getting sick with COVID again. What was interesting with that is that we all got sick with COVID roughly about the same day, which I thought was very bizarre. And we're talking one person's in Singapore, you two are in Australia, and I'm here in the United States. Now, what's the chances of all of us getting sick? I mean, literally, it was, and I think it was just a lack of communication. I would bet money that it was on the same day or within a 48-hour window, because it seemed like with the lack of communication, it was like a 3-day delay before I figured out that you guys had already had it, and you were trying to figure out what was going on. And then the whole time you were telling me that you guys weren't feeling good, and because she went to visit you, I was sneezing. And then my mother came from Florida, and I had to drop her off on a cruise. Well, when she came back, I thought I got it from her because she had it. Well, I was sneezing the whole week that she was gone. So either it's a really one hell of a coincidence, and I got sick when she gave it to me, or I gave it to her, and then we both split her up. And she went on the cruise, and it incubated in both of us, or something much more sinister and fishy happened that would mean that we all got sick at the same time for the same reason. And just the fact that she was here getting sick with it was a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's the type of crap that we're dealing with. It's you play detective almost as much as you play doctor to yourself, because you can't get help. You can't go to a doctor. And for for long COVID, for example, it's extremely difficult to get help anywhere. Even, here in the United States, your doctors they're not able to do anything for you, because they're it's frowned upon, if not threatened, for them to step in and prescribe anything. They can't do that. And there's very little research, very little money going into it for the number of people who are sick with it. And we can't even talk about why. So at least not here.
Yeah. Well, so it is pretty
bad. Because it is a
bad.
coveted disease. It's a very, it's like a god to the certain people.
Like
a
some
viral
people
god.
See, we can get around certain things, like where we won't cause any problems. It's like, but
so we think we'll find out.
it's like, for example, yeah, I find pellets, the borax pellets help. I mean, that's not a controversial thing. People talk about that all the time, as long as that's all you say.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah. The horse special seems to help a lot too.
Yeah, that really bitter apple candy in a tube, little plunger syringe.
Yeah.
You little
Increased dosage of that, increased dosage of the cleaning stuff, the Mr. Borax. Love
pineapple
washing my laundry with
capsules.
it.
Yeah, there's the delicious pineapple capsules.
Yeah, yeah. Pineapple enzyme capsules.
So we're pretty much doing the protocol and then adding and subtracting things as needed. Yeah, the other thing too, what's interesting between the two of us is that they've been targeting my cardiovascular system, my heart, my they affect my blood pressure. My autonomic nervous system was the first big target they did a couple of years ago in 2019. So I did a podcast with Rose Erkin on, I think it was 23rd of January. And I just started feeling better. And 23rd, I was up late to probably 3 in the morning, went to bed, got up around 10 or 11 o'clock and immediately felt bad. And I felt bad every day after that. And it turns out that my blood pressure went from a normal range on a low dose of a prescription medication to, and I would give you I'd tell you the name of it, but that could be used against us too. It could be promoting prescription medications without authorization from big pharma, or giving out medical advice by just bringing up that I'm prescribed it. Anything can and will be used against you here on YouTube. So, but yeah, I got up and I was having blood pressure to the point where it was almost to this. It wasn't at what they call a stage or a phase or a stage 3 crisis, but it was close and it was getting there. And I was physically sick for 6 weeks. I didn't realize what it was. I hadn't been taking my blood pressure like I should have been. Otherwise, I would have found it. And I took it by accident, more or less just out of curiosity, because it was like, well, I haven't done that in a while. And it was 163 over 100, and I felt pretty bad. And that's okay. And then I realized the head rushes, the blurred vision. I could even see my pulse in my eyes. Every time my pulse would pulsate, it was a fluctuation in my visual field, like just like you could see like a ripple effect going, I guess, across the retina, because that's what it is. It's a blood vessel exerting pressure on the retina itself, so it's distorting the shape of it. And that could be several severe things, but when your blood pressure gets that high, it can do that. And I had brain fog and I just felt terrible. So, and then it was difficult to get under control. But what I've noticed is that, and we talked about this earlier before we started recording, is that you'll be sick for a while and then it just goes away. And you'll have a few good days, maybe a few good weeks. And it's as if they do that it's like psychological warfare. They'll get your hopes up. It also affects people around you, because if you've been sick for a long time and you're unable to work and there's a lot of financial pressure on you, especially if you're married and you have a family, it becomes a big issue. And then you start to suddenly get better, and then they make you sick again. So it appears as if, and if you start bringing up the type of things that we talk about, then it starts to look like a mental health issue, like a psychosomatic condition based in a delusion. And so there's another thing that we can actually talk about too, is the risk of going public, because that's what I really wanted to talk about tonight. It wasn't so much what to do for these conditions, because we're just playing cat and mouse with it. It's just the entire spectrum of BS that you got to go through. Not only are you being made sick and then made better, and then it's just being cycled. And that what that causes you to do is constantly trying to reconfigure your supplement regimen and to look for new things. So they can change things at the whim, at just a whim, and change the way you feel when you're being targeted with this stuff by an application of a frequency. But at the same time, you're trying to counter it with organic or just chemical or natural supplements. But then you've got this fluctuation in your physical condition and what you can do. And then that causes people to question whether or not you have a legitimate illness or not, because it isn't a consistent set of symptoms. It constantly changes. And so what advice would you give people, being that you're in this situation as well as me? I mean, what would you give advice? What kind of advice would you give them? And I'll give them mine after you go. It's probably going to be the same. it's advice that it's like what's left over that you haven't done is the advice. So kind of a lot of it. So go ahead.
Well, advice would be, I think when if you're in this kind of situation like Nathan and I, don't just blindly trust doctors and medical professionals, like because they are not gods. They're not.
Yes.
You should never trust anyone 100%. Like, like I mean, you should make your own discernments, like you give people the benefit of the doubt, but you make your own discernments and you got to be vigilant. And the amount of things that I've learned because well, this started with my partner before I got sick with her. Like I was starting to get sick too, but she was worse than me, and she begged me to do something because it was so bad, and the doctors kept just pumping us full of different things that don't do anything really. They actually make, well, actually, yes, they do. They make things much worse eventually. And so we started. I guess I would really encourage. A lot of people already do this, but just encourage like studying medicine yourself as much as possible and liaise with like t talk with your doctor and if you have like an integrative doctor, like or a naturopath or someone that's more holistic, they usually will work with you as long as you don't like insult them,
You got to
because
choose your words wisely when you're dealing with these
yeah,
doctors. But those types
but
of doctors are generally more expensive. Sometimes they're not covered by insurance, and a lot of us are in a position where we either can't work or our ability to earn an income is limited. So then you're stuck with whatever's left. Here in the United States, if you've lost everything, you get Medicaid, or you can get into the exchanges and have a very disproportionate to your income type of like a level of payment you got to pay, but you can get some access to healthcare. The problem that I've been having is that it isn't that the doctors don't want to deal with the problem specifically. It's just that they can flag you in the system. And here in this country, Project Nightingale is the main records system for the whole country, and big tech is the administrator of it. It's and they literally have, it's like a criminal history, more or less. It's a criminal indictment of your health and your behavior and things you say at the doctor's office. So the problem is that if you go into a doctor's office and you're honest and you say, I think I think I'm being targeted by whatever entity you want to call it. You can say it's ETs, you can say the military, the government, an international cabal, whatever it is. You're going to sound crazy, and they're not going to take you seriously. So you can't bring any of these things up. You have to walk a very fine line. It's the razor's edge in order to get any help at all from these doctors. And you also got to watch your behavior too, because if you're under a tremendous amount of stress, and they have the ability to remotely influence doctors. I mean, if you've been targeted, you'll know that you can have a great rapport with a doctor, go there plenty of times, the targeting starts, and you go back, and it's like a totally different doctor. They don't want to treat you, or a lot of times they'll just do nothing for you, or try to give you something that's not going to help you intentionally to get you to just say, because they can't. I don't know if there's a rule or whatever, but it doesn't look good when a doctor rejects you for no reason. They got to have a reason. Sometimes office staff will concoct conspiracies, such as office managers. If they deem you a high risk patient or anything like there's something you've been flagged over, they can create it. They can manufacture a conspiracy and discharge you and make it difficult. And then that makes it difficult for you to find another doctor. I had problems with primary care doctors, cardiologists, orthopedic surgeons, pain management doctors. I think that's about neurosurgeons and neurologists. And every time, what I also noticed too, and this is probably, I'm sure a lot of people will say, yeah, this happens to me as well, is when I start getting sick, especially if it's a new condition or one that's been cycled and I haven't been sick with it for a while. is that first thing that happens is the medical COINTELPRO kicks in when I go to the doctor, and I start getting really erroneous dead ends thrown at me. Doctors whacked out of character. I'll go to specialists. They'll refuse to treat me. They'll argue my symptoms and tell me I don't have it. They'll blame it on stress. You name it. They'll scapegoat it with other things, and it's a way of getting you out of the office. Sometimes doctors' assistants do that, nurse practitioners, and then usually when that happens, you start coming home and you're stressed. So then you start talking about it to family and friends. Then you realize that it appears that some of the people around you are being manipulated subconsciously, because then they start taking the position of the doctors. And you know your body, you know your condition, you know what's happening. Then you have a choice. You can be honest with them, or you can just act dumb and just say, I'm sick, I need help. So, the doctors are not treating me properly. I need to keep looking. But yeah, usually it's a
Very
concert of
true, yeah.
those things. It's like everything converges at once. It's like the family thing. The family will intervene. They'll be like a source of endless stress and arguing. You've got the doctors not helping you, and the financial issues with that, because the co-pays at the doctors, you're limited on how many, your insurance could limit you. Your ability to pay your share of the cost could limit you from in one turn. I mean, you get a couple doctors that turn you down in a row. They've delayed you getting help for 3 to 6 months, if not longer, depending on what medical system you're in. And if you're in a system like was more socialized and you've got to wait, just imagine you waited 12 months for a specialist and they just turn you down and say, they come up with some ridiculous excuse. And, they'll offer you. I mean, I was actually offered a prescription drug recently that I had a reaction to. And it was like, that was my ultimatum: take
I,
that drug
I,
or get out of the office,
I
you
was
know?
told I have symptoms that mimic that. Let's put it this way: I'm not diagnosed with this, but I have symptoms which very much point to colon cancer. And I got told to eat a fiber that's made out of sugar cane. So my colon starts moving and bulking things again. And it's like, well, there's a better alternative. It's called glucomannan. It's not a sugar. It's a prebiotic. You see, and I said this is what Nathan's talking about. Like, and I will get I get told. Let's see, my partner and I have been told now. We've both given samples of polyps and we know what they are. You can look them. It's so obvious when you see the stuff like this in the toilet. And sorry guys for that information, but it's like and you can see they're pathogenic and have roots like a weed and things like that. And you can find this on Google, easily find a diagram that matches this. We send it to our GP and he's like, this doesn't look like food. This doesn't look like fecal matter. This is not normal. And he wants to send it away. And he is that suspicious about the people that are messing with the results of things that he wanted to look at it first. He told us before he sent it away. And then so he sent it away and it came back and they said there was nothing. They said there was literally nothing to test. Like no, and yeah. I think they said it was just actually I don't even think they said there was fecal matter. I think they just said it was there was nothing. And we just sent it a second time, both of our samples. They did it again.
Oh,
And
so
then we
this
tried it.
the second time this happened, because I was waiting to get those to hear the
Yeah,
results.
yeah. We've had a third time now. So we went to another patho. This is the thing. The second time they were meant to be sent to another pathology, and the front desk accidentally sent it to the
Right.
other
To
place.
the same
And
place they had the bad reading from the first time, right?
yeah, and then see, but then we hand delivered it to the other place, this time ourselves, and even they sent back our results. Do you know what they said? They said it's
What?
vegetable matter. It doesn't look like like the closest thing it could possibly be when you're identifying polyps, the closest thing they look like, just so anyone knows, in case this happens to you, right? Polyps look like chickpeas. They don't look like anything else. Okay. Now, we don't eat chickpeas at all. So, what is it? It's not food, just like our doctor said. Why are they saying it's food? Why are they saying it doesn't exist?
Well,
Why did we go to the hospital and
right.
they said that my partner had gangrenous on visible on her abdomen, and the doctor looked at it and pressed her stomach. She flinched in pain, and he says, "There's nothing wrong. You don't ha-"
Right, right.
Yeah. And then she gets given this, then he tries to hypnotize her, like, you know. What? Oh, I wasn't there, and she had to tell me. And then they were instigating about me beating her up, saying I beat her up when I carried her in my arms. They saw me carry her in my arms, and they and then when I went to get her medication, they grouped up together, thinking she was asleep, and said they were gonna that they were basically formulating a scenario, you know.
Yeah.
So
Now, this
like
could be something that could be going on with a child, where the parents are trying to get the child help. The child's the MILAB or the TI victim, or both.
that
And this same thing could be done with them, and they could bring in CPS.
mm,
I mean,
they were a bit.
what if you had a child who's going through abductions and was getting marks,
Mm,
injuries, like some of our friends go through, where they wake up and
mm,
their legs are bruised, their knees, their ankles are bruised, their feet are bruised, they've got marks, puncture marks. This could happen to a parent raising a child who that this is being done to. And I had a
mm.
problem just like what he's talking about too. When you're done, I'll tell you my horror story, because this is medical COINTELPRO story time.
Yeah, yeah, mostly that was it. And other than the fact that the lead doctor, was more responsible. Like, if anyone wants to talk about abuse here, if we want to talk about abuse, him trying to force a mask on my partner when she's dying, she literally had anemia and was dying, like could not breathe,
Right.
like, well, and this idiot, this evil piece of crap wanted to, oh yeah, we'll put a mask on you, and then lies to me about the regulations saying what we have to, and it says you don't. That
No,
was what's
if you got a
hilarious.
if you got a medical emergency,
Yeah.
even the biggest tyrant's not going to try to push that one. But the problem
Yeah.
is getting them to recognize the medical emergency. That's the case. I got a friend who's also a TI and a MILAB as well. She's not fully aware of it, but she's heavily targeted and she's been made very sick. And she has a collapsed part of her diaphragm collapsed, and one of her lungs became paralyzed. So she was forced to wear a mask during the pandemic to doctor's appointments for her son, for herself. Even though she had, I think she might have even had a medical exemption, but they, certain places don't want to hear that. They're so fanatical about it. And it could be being influenced as well. Because I mean, I had a doctor for pain management after 7 spine surgeries. I hadn't been back in about 4 years, and I went back because I needed to go back. It's been 8 years since the fusion, roughly, and it's now I'm going to need another one. And I've got chronic pain. I've got chronic existing pain prior to that, plus the COVID and everything else. It inflames your whole body. I go back to this doctor. I see his assistant, not him. Last time I had seen him a couple of years ago, he said I was an ideal patient because I didn't use a lot of the medication, and so I was somebody that he didn't mind treating because of the pressure of the DEA over narcotics and things like that, pain medication. So I go back and I'm being told I got fibromyalgia, which I've never been diagnosed with, because that's a blanket cut. That's something you diagnose somebody with if there is no real origin of injury or pain origin. Now, I've had 7 surgeries. I've got 5 levels fused, scar tissue, damage from the surgeries. My anatomy's screwed up. I've got screws, I've got rods, I've got plates. So I've got all that, and it causes damage and causes pain. Even if you have a perfect outcome, you're still going to have pain from something like that. They're just butchering you back together and hoping you heal up. And and then the doctor literally said, we're going to treat this like a new condition. I'm like, okay, you're going to ignore the the 20, actually, I've had a history since I was 7, so my 43-year history, but technically surgery wise, I've had a 25 to 26-year history of surgeries. So to say that we're going to treat it as a back sprain and ignore the entire history, and then until you have fibromyalgia when everything's documented, just to get me to say, and then make a condition where I had to like take drugs that I had bad reactions to that caused severe brain fog. After I explained, it took close to 3 years to get my mind back from COVID, to put me on something that causes brain fog is one of the main side effects that everybody gets that I'd already had a problem with before. And then to recommend an antidepressant, and completely disregarding all of the protocols that were successful for the last 25 years that doctor participated in. It's totally ridiculous. And to do it for no, and just to do it like that. And then I find out, and well, I've also been flagged because I've had incidents in doctors' offices where the staff has actually lied and fabricated things that should have been an arrestable offense that I was accused of. So I won't get into that because I might have to engage in some litigation, but if it's even possible. But they will do things to people will do things maliciously to you. The problem is that there are people in the medical system who are psychopaths and sociopaths, and sick-minded people will go into the medical field to make money, and they realize how much work it is, and then they abuse their patients. And there's bad doctors and bad nurses and bad office managers and bad staff out there, but the ones that are prone to the negative behavior, the easiest one to remotely mind control, because it doesn't take much of a catalyst or a push of any kind to get them to do it. So you walk into these places, and if all it needs is just a change of a single person in that office, and then you're not going to get help. It's that easy. With remote neural monitoring and everything that they do, I mean, they literally have the ability of a god to watch over you going to the doctors, even looking out of your eyes with that technology that they have. And I've had them taste through my mouth, look through my eyes, listen through my ears, and then do it remotely. Because you have a remote counterpart and you have one that uses your physiology to experience what you're experiencing. I had my contacts out one night, and I had this. It had to have been a personnel, or a member of the personnel at the White Sands underground, facility. This is in White Sands, New Mexico. He literally said in a very derogatory way, "You're blind," and made fun of my eyesight. So because I didn't have my contacts in, so I knew he was looking through my eyes at that point. I was in a Lowe's parking lot, getting ready to go into the store when it happened.
Yeah, they can do that. They do have, and I've even shared Neuralink patents or research that shows they were going to implement that, and they already can do it anyway. I know they can. That's what the white static is about, everybody. Sorry to tell you, but somebody has to say it. So, be interesting to see what happens when everybody. Well, it's going to come to a point very soon where things are going to, like, this is all. I mean, you look at the world with all the banks and the government, all the crazy stuff that's going on. I don't think it's going to go down like the end of the world kind of thing. I think people are going to actually, I'm trying to think of the right word. They're going to wake up to this, and they're gonna go nuts when they realize that all this stuff, like that they can be like seen through their own eyes and stuff like that. It's
Yeah, then we'll find
this
out.
isn't theoretical. This isn't speculation.
Right.
This is happening. So
It's definitely happening, and it's above board now. The problem is so many people aren't aware of it. I mean, when you talk about these subjects, if you just talk about what's in mainstream publications, nobody's aware of it.
hmm,
You talk about nanotech, people aren't aware of it. If you talk about football and sports and entertainment, people are completely tuned into that and well versed in it. But when you talk about things that really matter in the world and affect them directly, they're completely ignorant to it. And some people are waking up, but we're not there yet. And you got the other problem is, yeah, you can wake people up and inform them of something, but what are you going to get them to do something about it? And we need, and the best way to deal with this, best advice I can give anybody is just stop complying with it. If you don't with the chip in your brain, don't consent to it. Don't look at it as a positive thing. And don't look I mean, they want something called brain transparency. This is the World Economic Forum. This is their past conference and the one before.
There you go, everyone.
Yeah, brain transparency. And they openly talk about using AI to monitor thought so they'll have thought crimes. They can stop something before it
Minority Report.
Yeah, it's just like there's plenty of movies. Well, there's certain movies out there. I would say plenty. Maybe there needs to be more that describe this. Yeah.
They're using to give people a specific example since I guess have we been going for nearly an hour? But yeah, just to continue,
I can split this into two. We've been going over a little over maybe close to an hour. I didn't keep track of it, but
yeah,
we can go another 20 minutes and I'll split it in half if we need to.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is pretty important for people to understand is like the technology, how it works. Okay, so quantum AI is a big super brain, and it can do things that the digital AI cannot, but they actually need to work together. They both do things but what one another can't do. The digital AI actually collect the data for the brain, the quantum brain, and then it does what it does, and then it spits it back out through the digital. The digital is needed to translate, and they're not, they're collecting like Nathan said, they're collecting all kinds of data on people to predict and profile them. So, so they profile you just like Westworld season 3. They know everything about you. They know what you're going to do, most likely. And they're going to use that as a means to justify control over it'd be like the Patriot Act on steroids times 100. Like, oh, we know you were going to do this, even though nothing is set in stone. That's the crime here. You can't say that someone's going to do something when prediction models prove that you can never 100% predict something. Only 99.99%. That leaves room for unpredictability, which means you cannot pre-arrest someone.
Well, I think
but that's what they're trying to do.
I think they want to go a little further than that eventually. I think we're going into the gray area of human history. And what I mean is not of a vague period of time where nothing is clear. And I'm talking about is a gray period of history where they actually turn people into what they've turned the grays into: biological cyborgs, biological workers, drones, essentially. And that's where we're actually headed towards. But yeah, it isn't just the thought crimes. It's what they want to do is they want to integrate the system of targeting that they've developed over a long period of time. I don't know how many decades it's been in action, but the ETs had the tech well before the well before the clandestine military programs got it, so they were using it. But they want to actually use the tech that they're using on targeted individuals as a means of deterrence. So it's not just that, okay, the best case scenario is you commit a thought crime and they arrest you. Now you have to go to court. You get a misdemeanor charge of questioning the government. Well, that's the best case scenario, because it's still more of a conventional thing going on. It's something relatable. But what if they hit you with directed energy? What if there is no arrest? What if every time you step out of line, you get sick? What if you become an activist and you're like, okay, we're going to start a movement and turn this around? Well, it's too late for that because everyone in your movement, including you, are going to get violently sick. Fast acting cancers, you're going to have brain damage. You're going to have Havana syndrome is something that they're willing to talk about because they want to blame it on an unknown actor. That's the Havana Cuba embassy where U.S. diplomats were targeted by directed energy, which caused brain damage, neurological damage to these people. They have permanent health problems, some of them quite severe, from what I understand, just from one or more attacks. So they can do that to you, and they can just slowly make you sick, and they can make you sick, and then just like we described, okay, you're sick, and all of a sudden you get better. Well, there's a reward. There's a reward. Stop doing your podcast. You'll feel better. Stop questioning authority. You'll feel better. So all these things, it's more than just being punished, where you could say, okay, I've had enough. I damn the consequences. Arrest me for a thought crime. It goes beyond
Mm.
that. It's when you're down and sick in your own house and nobody stopped by, and you've heard a voice in your head telling you better get in line or you're going to die, and it's the government. You're going to wish that they came and arrested you and put you in a state of health in a prison where you still had your health and your mind. But no, they're going to be into both. So it's much,
Mm.
much worse than anybody could possibly imagine who hasn't experienced it.
Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah. And on that note, is that a good time to end off or?
Well, if there's
Hmm.
anything else you want to talk about, like one last particular bombshell of a subject,
I
we've
think
got
I've
into this one
covered a
pretty
few
good.
things there where I've yeah, like before I get zapped or anything,
Yeah.
I start spacing out and everything. Uh, that's fun when that happens. It's like, uh, what do you do? What do you do? Like you just feel like you've just been slapped over the back of the head and then dunked underwater, and you're like,
Are you getting that right now? Are you okay or what?
oh, it starts to happen sometimes. Yeah, like I mean, I felt it happening while we were doing this, but I can just shake it off. Sometimes it's not so bad, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's something we can talk about real quick. Um, and then I just want to talk about, what we're going to be doing in the future, and the 16th of March, what we're going to be doing. Then we'll end it there. So this is podcast one. We're just getting back into doing this. This is really the first time we've done one just together, the two of us. So it was a little awkward at first. I hope everybody's still hanging in there.
Mm.
Um, and what I want to say essentially is that March 16th, we're going to be going on the Typical Skeptic podcast with our friends Evie and James Bartley. And so it'll be the four of us and Rob, and we're going to put off. This is the third time we've done this, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And we got to keep up with
Be a lot to
James.
talk about.
Yeah, it'd be a lot
Mm.
to talk about for sure. And James seems to be impervious to some of this brain stuff. At least maybe it's because he hasn't been hit with it, but as bad as we have. But it's always going into there's a little bit of anxiety because we got to kind of keep up with the one who's more fresh because he's getting hit less. So
He
yeah,
might just know how to shield.
we'll have to ask him. We're gonna ask him. So
So
we'll
yeah.
find out what he's doing. Uh,
Evie seems to be familiar with shielding, and it's like, yeah, that CD sounds
Yeah, they're doing that too, and
interesting.
Evie is not doing as well as James, and she's been pretty beaten down as well herself. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, what I just wanted to talk about real quick, and then we'll wrap this up here, is that, and I said something about this in the last podcast. We did a recent podcast on Rob's channel, and I brought up the fact that there's people out there in the community. I wouldn't even say they're even in the community. They're just people that kind of peruse the community and take a look at it, and they think that we're actors, like there's possibly somebody paying us to do this, or we're mentally ill and we all just congregate and have a mutual, a delusion that's shared worldwide, that all these things are happening to us, and or they think this is some sort of grift to make money. uh Nobody's getting paid here. Everything that we do is cost out of pocket, and the price that we pay is far worse than you can imagine, because it isn't 15 or 20 a month for Zoom or a website or some editing software, a monthly fee for that. And what it is you pay for it with your life, and you're sickened. But so you may say, well, why would you do it? Well, because we were already being made sick beforehand. So this became a moral imperative to come forward and explain to people what's going on and expose it, knowing that they were going to come after us anyway. And it didn't matter. I was shadow banned on Twitter from day one. I've been shadow banned on BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube from day one. Um, it doesn't matter. There's no way out of this. They're going to get you no matter what. You're marked from the start. So the best thing you can do is come forward if you're able to. And there's a lot of pitfalls in that one. So when you do that, and I would say a couple of things. Don't use your real name if you unless you've already done so, like I have. So, and that's a problem because people will Google you if you look for a job. They do just a simple Google search. If you've done a lot of interviews recently and aren't that shadow banned, it'll pop right up. Chances are, if you're shadow banned and you're looking for a job, and your prospective employer does a search, you'll still come up. You'll be the first thing that comes up. Your last interview. So, use a different name, use your middle name if you want to keep it close to being realistic. Um, or just don't, or use an assumed name and don't show your face. It depends on how you do it, but be prepared to go through a lot of punishment because of it. The people that you see that are doing the podcast that are look incredibly healthy and there's nothing wrong with them and aren't complaining about this stuff are people that the programs often either co-opted to talk or have been programmed and mind controlled to talk, and therefore they only get minor problems, usually to keep them feeling like, okay, I'm like everybody else. I'm still getting attacked, but I never get hurt. And that's one of the
Mm.
common things you find with celebrity starseed influencers is that they have the psychic attacks, but they handle them with kid gloves. They don't get anything like we're talking about. Minor issues compared to this nightmares, whatever it is, but it's never anything life threatening or where there's physical tissue damage and injury and chronic illnesses.
Mm.
They don't get the gang stalking, and then, or what I call psychic street theater, which is where you go into a scenario in a social situation, knowing what's going to happen. You feel it intensely because they're telling you what they're going to do to you. You're making you sense it, and then but you think that, hey, today I was really psychic. Boy, I was really psychic. I went to the food store and 15 people acted like a total jerk to me, or I had a couple of people wanted to fight me, or something else happened, and you're thinking your psychic abilities worked, but in reality, they just influenced that whole event. And you had an artificial telepathy, an artificial psychic event that gave you the signs about what was going to happen, and you walked right into an engineered scenario where people were remotely taken over temporarily to act in a certain way. So if you've got somebody that's having a bad day or just a bad person in your vicinity, they can tune into that, read that person's thoughts and energy signature, and put them to work for them without them knowing it.
They can now. They probably didn't used to be able to before, but they can now since all this stuff is in everyone with the white staticky stuff. It is crazy. And you will notice weird things like people just yeah. But we can talk about this in a next another part and for sure. But there's a whole subject about utilizing magic and embedding it in technology. There's a real, very real thing. It's quite odd, you know. It's like and that's what they're kind of doing here. I want to talk to people about understanding that digital, like binary, is not just digital, but it's also a language used for quantum computing. But they use quantum binary for that. And binary is ones and zeros, and you put one and zero together, that's 10, that's X in Roman numerals. In the occult, they um, revere this as God's language. So here's an interesting thing, right? It seems to be some kind of like ability. They seem to have some kind of ability to use binary and nanotechnology, the software that the information they send to the nanites. I think when they're combining it with hybridized like physical like um tissue, they might be able to possess people easier. Like it's like to technologically assisted possession.
Right. And
Um,
then running parallel with that, you've got the health problems that everyone's going through.
because I believe I believe they will see. Here's the thing: a lot of people start talking about AI, wanting the God, the um, the AI being the secret demon or God or whatever. No, I think there is a being that they want to for people to believe it's an AI, but I actually think that they're utilizing AI technology and software to give them a space to inhabit their being, you know, like a demon, it's hard for me to explain, but mm,
Well, you're talking about technology that's fusing with consciousness. So when you, and that's, for example, if you're trying to remote view something, you have a group of remote viewers or one person, a computer that was designed to be able to interface with the collective can do a better job at it.
mm,
So,
because
yeah,
mm,
we
what's
basically, it's like synthetic telepathy on steroids. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. The reason why I believe this is the case is because I have the ability to clear bad entities or negative entities. And the thing is, this is happening to my partner, but I also know when this is happening to her, it is actually because of the bioweapon that's affecting us both. Like it's just that powerful that we're struggling to. It's like we take one step forward and feel better, and then it kicks us up the butt. Like it's like chasing after us. We're trying to
Yeah.
keep getting away. Um,
That's what it was for me. I had 5 good days. I added a new supplement in that you guys were taking, 5 good days. And then on the 24th, I woke up and was sick.
yeah.
And, you wonder if what you've done in your diet or your supplementation is the cause, or they just gave you a break and made you think it was. So, that's why I've been like going on and off supplements just to see what would happen. But you can't even do that accurately because if you got somebody monitoring you and they want to mess with you, they could screw those results up completely. You think you're okay, you think the supplements are working, I feel good, but actually they're not hitting you at that time. And then suddenly you get sick again. It's very, very difficult. And then what I was alluding to before is when you're physically sick, you're mentally more open to being subjected to these types of targeting where they're getting into your head and the voice to skull stuff. It seemed as if when I was feeling my worst, they were able to get in much more effectively with less resistance. And if they can get you into a state of delirium from being sick or exhaustion, because they use sleep deprivation too as another way to get at you. So they'll break you down in many ways. And
Mm,
I know somebody, and this was done to me too. I mean, if they target your sinuses, for example, and cause a reactive skin condition like they did with me, ultimately, if you go up there and alter your anatomy enough, you're going to have sleep apnea. You're not going to be able to breathe properly when you sleep without a CPAP machine. And there's your sleep deprivation right there. And then they'll use that against you too. They use
mm,
it all. They compound all the different health problems, and then they strategize, and then they go after you. They weaken you from a mental point of view, and then they're able to get in much more effectively. So the sicker you are, the more open you are for possession. Just like with people who suffer from schizophrenia, that's an organic brain disease. It appears that it turns you into a receiver. So the voices in your head and all these things, and potentially at least some, if not the majority of your hallucinations, could very well be generated by an AI system. Now that your natural defenses are down and you're much more open to it, especially when you consider that usually the voices in people's heads often say the same negative things. There's very great consistency among one victim to another who suffer from these problems. And schizophrenia, by the way, is completely different from what people deal with who are targeted. They get voices in their head, but it's a different thing. And one of the biggest issues with being a TI is that if you don't have psychic intuition as a measuring stick or a divining rod or a means of guiding yourself through these experiences and these attacks, you risk running or actually being conditioned to disassociate with reality, which is another strategy where you think literally everything that goes wrong is a result of targeting.
Mm.
So you got to be very skeptical going into this yourself, because and people make the mistake is they just start talking about this stuff and they just start addressing everything that happens to them as potentially not even as
Yeah, if you're
potential targeting, as being targeted. And then they
if
sound
you're
crazy to other people and nobody pays attention.
yeah, if you're targeted, just make sure that your mind is the what you focus on getting well for before anything, so you can actually function. Um, Otherwise, you're not going to get to the bottom of anything. You're not going to be able to help yourself, and that's all there is to it that I was going to say in that regard. Yeah. But I guess we can talk about the other stuff in the following week, was it that we're doing?
Yeah, we're doing something with Rob, Evie, and James on the
Yeah,
16th, so
yeah.
we can do it there. And we're going to be doing this weekly, by the way. So we'll have another
Mm.
one. I may break this in two. So we're going to be getting to these subjects, and yeah, I promise future topics where there's something to be angry about. We'll be more animated, more excited. This was just getting into it and just starting to because we haven't done one, just the two of us, so it feels awkward. It's funny. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
it isn't, it's like we're
I
used
feel
to
pretty
working off.
comfortable.
Well, yeah, I feel comfortable, but it's not like it took us a while to get warmed up. We're used to working off of other people's energies, not each other so much when we're doing this.
Mm.
So it's a bit different, because there's that extra person there that kind of feeds you things and kind of, everybody just works off of each other when you're doing podcasts. At least that's the way it's supposed to go, unless it's a completely fake scripted podcast. And, we've seen plenty of them, usually from the government.
Yeah.
The news, the fake news will do a podcast. Well, anyway, let's wrap this one up. So we'll
Yeah,
see
it's
you
been
guys.
great.
We're gonna be doing this every week at a random day. It just depends on what happens during the week. So we may get down to doing it, publishing it on a single day, or like a regular date, but not
Mm.
yet. Not so far. We're just playing this. We're just seeing what happens. So until the hammer comes down, we'll see you next time, right?
See you next
And
time,
what I
everybody.
mean is the hammer is getting attacked. So that's the reptilian reprisal, as Evie would say. Yeah. So
Mm.
and so we'll see you we'll see you soon. Hopefully there's no reprisals. So take care.
Take it easy.